Trying to grow can be a super challenge. There's all sorts of different things you need to do and all ways to do it. But what about AI? Everybody's talking about AI, and I know we've talked about it before, but we've never really talked about it from a sales perspective. We talked about it in content creation, all that fun stuff. But what about from a sales perspective? How can you incorporate AI so you can be faster, you can be, better quality, all of that fun stuff? Well, I didn't know how to do it, but Ryan Staley, he's the master at it. Ryan Staley with Whale Boss, this guy knows it inside and out. He helps companies incorporate AI so that they can be better. They can have better quality with faster reporting times, faster everything. This stuff is awesome. And what he shares here is a step-by-step of how you can do it too. Check this out.
Welcome to Scale Your SaaS, the podcast that gives you proven techniques and formulas for boosting your revenue and achieving your dream exit. Brought to you by a guy who's done just that multiple times. Here's your host, Matt Wolach.
And welcome to Scale Your SaaS. Thank you very much for being here. So glad that you've joined us. By the way, if you're looking to do that, if you're looking to scale your SaaS, meaning generate a bunch of leads, grow your team, close a bunch of deals, whatever it is that you want to do, that's what we focus on this show. So make sure that you're subscribed. You don't want to miss any of the amazing people that we bring on to show you how to grow your company. And one of those amazing people that can show you that, that's our guest today. His name's Ryan Staley. Ryan, how you doing today?
Good, man. Love the energy, love the flow, excited to get pumped. And as I mentioned before the show, it's good to talk to you in real life, man.
I know Ryan and I, he's all over. You guys have probably seen him on Twitter or LinkedIn. This guy's everywhere because he's super smart, sharing great ideas. And we've communicated a lot online, and kind of such is the world today. You don't really get to chat very much, but here we are getting a chance to chat. So I'm excited about it, Ryan.
Yeah, me too, man. This will be a lot of fun. I know you love to nerd out on sales like myself and making businesses grow, or I should say enabling businesses grow, not making them grow, right? That sounded a little negative. But yeah, man, pumped to get into it, man. So let's get rolling.
Super cool. Let me tell everybody who you are and what you can do. So Ryan, he's the founder and CEO at Whale Boss. And basically this guy, I love his story. Ryan had his first success in business as an inside sales representative selling cutting edge technology and training to CIOs, CTOs, and VPs of the largest investment banks and brokerages in the world. He finished number one nationally, was promoted to manager and then to senior manager. It's such a cool story. Whale Boss is a new cutting-edge consultancy designed around providing fast results versus billable hours. Revenue sprints are the new way for companies to implement scalable sales success systems fast without sacrificing ownership or control of your organization to investors. Now, he's also the podcast host at the Scale Up Show, so definitely go check him out there. But Ryan, thanks for coming on. So glad to have you here.
Yeah, it'll be fun, man. This will be good. So looking forward to it.
Me too. So tell me, what's been going on with you lately?
Yeah, man. So I think and I mentioned this to you. You're like, we were talking about this a little bit before. Like, what have you been focused on? And I'm like, well, I've been focused on AI for the last year. So it's been like 8 years of my life effectively crammed into 1 year, right? So here's how it all kind of came down, Matt. Like when I was interviewing Chris Savage from Wistia. Have you ever had Chris on your show at all or no?
I haven't.
He's a good guest, man. He'd be a great SaaS founder for you to interview. Anyways, so cool. He introduced me to DALL-E in like it was like October of 2022. And so DALL-E is an image generation created by OpenAI where you type in text and go to pictures, where if you aren't familiar with it. And then from there, I got introed into really ChatGPT, basically as soon as it came out, almost in that beta mode.
We'll be right back. Game changer in lead generation, lead feeder. One thing that's super frustrating when I work with clients is driving traffic to their website, but then not knowing who those visitors are. You can't tell who these companies are, but guess what? There is a tool and it's changing the game and supercharging your lead gen. It's called Lead Feeder. Now imagine having the power to identify companies visiting your website, track their behavior in real time, and seamlessly integrate it all with your CRM. Lead Feeder is not just a tool. This thing is your secret weapon for efficient and targeted targeted lead engagement. And what sets Leadfeeder apart? It's the ability to provide detailed insights into visitor behavior, helping your sales team prioritize efforts and close deals faster. This thing's got customizable notifications, lead scoring, GDPR compliance. It's loaded. Leadfeeder is really changing the game. If you're ready to revolutionize your approach to leads and deals, head over to leadfeeder.com for your free demo today. That's LEADFEEDER.com. Don't miss out on the future of successful lead generation with Leadfeeder. And we're back.
One of the things that like kind of rocked me to my core, but also excited me at the same time was I'm like, all right, I've been through close to 10,000 hours in customer meetings, right? In terms of dealing with C-level executives, understanding how they operate, what are the biggest challenges, how do they emotionally interact, and then how does that influence what they do on a day-to-day basis and how they make decisions. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to ask this freaking AI tool something about that I know to be true from actually doing the damn work, right? And so when I did that, it got close to like 95% of the way there within a couple of questions. And so that did two things. Like I said, it scared the hell out of me because I'm like, this is going to change everything. And I even talked to my wife about it because I'm like, this is just kind of unsettling, like how good this is. And on the other side of it, there's massive opportunity. So I'm like, okay, I could either run away from it or run towards it and help people so they don't get blindsided like this, like I would have when I was a revenue leader. And so that's the path I chose. And that's what I've been really deeply focused on in terms of integrating AI for revenue teams and then helping companies deploy that as well.
I love it. So when you talk about revenue teams, and if they're thinking, yeah, I need to use AI, I need to make this happen. Obviously, everybody's talking about it. What are some of the mistakes they make when they don't have professional help like yourself? What are they doing wrong that's putting them in a bad situation?
They try it once or twice, get mediocre results, and then they kind of write it off and don't do it again, right? That's one mistake that I see that's very common. Like, yeah, I tried it, it was okay, nothing special. And I think in outcomes a lot because I'm a high D personality profile, right? The DISC profile. And so that I think maybe that's why it came very easy to me because I was very prescriptive on the outcomes I wanted from it. And so it formulated that. So that's step one. Step two, I think, is leveraging it only for very, very limited use cases and like writing emails or transcribing notes. Like that's the most common where people look at it. And those are great use cases, don't get me wrong, but there's probably 15 to 20 different levels beyond that. And like, I'll give you a real quick example. And this is one I haven't even shared because like literally I just did this yesterday. So I listened to a podcast called Marketing Against the Grain. Have you ever heard that show at all?
I haven't.
So it's got the CMO of HubSpot on it and the CMO of Zapier on it, right? And they were talking, so like very credible people. They were talking about their framework in terms of creating basically content that converts, right? So high converting content that HubSpot has been amazing at. And so they broke down this framework. So what I did is I'm like, all right, I took my notes about the framework of basically creating like your product, I should say your features of all your products or product that you have, and then creating a content strategy and a content plan around it based on each feature. So then anything you create helps the conversion rate of basically converting that. So I took their framework, applied AI with my feature set, and then basically created an entire content plan and this probably took like an hour and 45 minutes to do. If I would have done that manually, first of all, I couldn't have done that manually because I didn't have the skill set to do that, right? Second, if I tried to do it manually, it probably would take me like 3 days to do it. And I got that done in like an hour and a half. And so there's two things from it. One is the time and the speed. Number two is like the quality of giving me skills that I don't even have yet. And taking someone's expertise and then personalizing it for me and then giving an output that I can immediately use. So that's like one example of how I think people kind of miss the mark on it and just use it for very trivial use cases, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think that actually resonates across all different channels that we try to use in terms of lead generation or anywhere within our sales process. Because a lot of times we start something and then we stop it too soon. A lot of times you'll see a company or a founder or a leader put something in place and they think that it's going to work. And then they do it a couple times, just like you said, and they stop. And that's really, really bad. Whether it's cold lead generation, you do a few emails and you stop. Whether it's posting on socials, you do a few posts, nothing happens, you stop. Whereas posting on YouTube, okay, I have no subscribers. Anything that we should be doing, a lot of times people just stop too soon. Sounds like it's the same with AI.
Totally agree, man. I totally agree. So let me ask you this, like from your perspective, not to flip the question on the host, right? Like, what do you see as the number one thing most, because like you work with a lot of SaaS founders and revenue leaders, like what's the number one thing you think they stop too soon? Like when it comes to the sales process or sales in general, what would you think is the number one thing that people stop too soon?
I mean, I feel like they stop SEO too soon. If you were to say, what's that thing that you think is going to be good that you stop? SEO, we're going to be awesome at SEO. We're going to create content and it's going to be amazing. And then you do a few articles and you look at your analytics and like 3 people visited your site. And you're like, okay, I guess this isn't going to work. I mean, that's one strategy in particular that is definitely a long-term strategy. Like I've had people who are SEO experts say, don't stop before a year, right? And that's a big commitment. So a lot of people don't even do it because they think, well, if it's going to be a whole year, I don't have the time. I'm going to focus on more quick lead generation strategies like outbound or something. But I would say of all of them, because I think there's a lot of them, that would be the one I would point to. How about you?
Yeah, that's a good example, man. You know what? Like, I think there's just so many. If I had to pick the most common one, like I've seen like technical founders do that just with sales as a whole, right? They're just like, oh, well, we're trying to sell this customer and it's just not working, but it's like they don't understand there's like 5 things of the 7 that they're not doing, right? Like there's such a gap. So I like what you're mentioning because that's more of like a grit consistency factor. More of what I'm talking about, I see is just not knowing. Just like that's how valuable not knowing is, right? So I think I see that, but the SEO thing I definitely makes sense as well.
Yeah, and I mean another one I think a ton of time. I actually was just giving a talk to a group this morning. It's funny that you bring this up, and they were asking something different, but it brought me to this same point. And I mentioned to them that most people give up on their cold outreach too soon. And I said, hey, how many touch points are in your sequence? He's like 3. Like I do a couple emails and a call, and if I don't hear from him, I turn it off. I say, make it 12 minimum on a touch point on cold outbound, and post talking to them. So post demo, I recommend 20 touch points, and it doesn't matter if they haven't gotten back to you at all. But I just had a client last week tell me, holy cow, I can't believe it. I believed you, so I followed it, and they didn't talk to me for 18 touch points. And on the 19th one, they responded and they're closing.
That's awesome.
I hear that all the time. We just have to be persistent. We can't give up. And that's something I drive home with my clients big time.
Love that, man. No, that's very sage advice, and that's true because attention is more and more valuable than ever. And so there's less of it. And I think that consistency over time is huge.
Yeah, I agree. So tell me, with Whale Boss, how are you helping people, especially around AI? How are you helping companies? What are some of the strategies? What are some of the tactics that you're able to help them over or put in place so that they can get to their goals?
Yeah, so I kind of look at it from 2 ways. One, I have a membership site where it's effectively a sales AI accelerator, and it's turning into a go-to-market AI accelerator because it's encompassing marketing, data analysis, and sales and revenue areas, right? And so effectively what that is it goes from like A to Z. So literally, if you take it and you go through the success path, within 2 hours, you could be better than 99% of people, I believe, in the revenue space at it. And at the same time, you can prompt 95% faster. So I provide a whole prompt library, do that, and walk them through step by step in terms of like how to set it up so that the AI can be customized to you, like a large language model like ChatGPT, what models to use at the best time, how to prompt, and then how to use it and integrate it in everything that you're doing, right? So like that's one aspect. And then what I'm starting to do is also work with companies and deploy this to their teams. So if you look at, have you seen the study by Ethan Wolach, who is the professor over at Wharton? Have you ever heard of him at all or no?
I haven't seen that, no.
Okay, so he did a study in conjunction with BCG Consulting, where they basically took 800 consultants and they had, 400 of them leveraged ChatGPT and 400 of them not, right? Didn't give them any training on, just they got to use the tool and one did not. So what they did is they tracked it, gave them the same exact jobs to be done, right, across the consultancy project. And what they did is they found out that effectively there's three metrics that they graded them on. One was quality, one was quantity, and one was speed, right? So if you had a guess, like, what do you think the improvement in quality was from a percentage perspective? You have any idea?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I would think that a lot of people preconceived would think that AI is not quite as quality as maybe a person who puts some effort into it. Yeah. So, but since you asked the question, I'll say 20%. But I would think most people, if you were to guess, is AI produce content better quality than a human actually doing it? I think most people would lean towards human right now.
Yeah. And so it was actually a 40% improvement is what they thought, right? So then if you look at the speed to completion, it got done in 75% of the time, the people that got to use AI. And then on top of it, they got 12.2% more tasks done, right? So if you're like, some people are like, oh yeah, 40% quality, yeah, that's not bad. But if you do the math on it, just like you would like conversion metrics for like a pipeline, like that's a 200% improvement when you stack all three of those. So amazing. Like, and this is even without training. This is without even people that like truly deeply understand how to use it. And that's just surface level. So imagine what's possible if someone has that highly integrated and into what they're doing. And so I'm starting to help companies deploy that, like CROs or founders deploy that to their teams so they could basically 2-3x the output of their entire team while also shaving out, it could be 10 hours a week, right? Per person. So that's like my mission, because like one of the things I think there's two things. One is, I've lost my job before, right? I've gotten either demoted or fired, right? I've had amazing success after that. It was like the best success happened after like my biggest downfall, I guess, so it's kind of like a storybook approach. But one of the biggest stressors is if you don't have a job and you don't have income and you get blindsided like that. So like, I believe that this is going to happen to a lot of folks in the revenue community, in the business community, and they have an opportunity to either, be victimized by that or become superhuman in the process. And so the more people that I can help avoid that and be able to spend more time with their family and their community and their friends, then like that's a huge win for me. While also really truly spending time on the things that they love doing with their job, as opposed to the things that they have to do. So
I love that. So where does AI kind of go bad? Are there things that people are doing that make it less helpful? Or are they missing the point? Or are they doing something wrong around it? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's good to always look at the yin and the yang, right? Everything isn't puppy dogs and ice cream, is I think Vince Vaughn said in Swingers, right? Was it Vince
One of my favorite movies, by the way. Amazing you just called that.
Wasn't it Vince Vaughn in Swingers that said that? Like, I pulled that out of the archives, man. That was from a long.
I'm impressed. Yeah, I'm impressed. Yes, I believe it was.
Okay. So, anyways, which is a funny story. I actually met Vince Vaughn in person one time with Kate.
That's cool.
Now, of all people. So, wow. Yeah,
quarterback Caveman now.
Very random.
Wow.
So this was in Chicago. So, but I digress. So where was I going? I totally like blacked out and lost track.
AI things that we might do wrong that might make us not as strong.
So here's what I would say is like, and I'll give a real world example of it. And I think this is a danger that many people could run into. Like, it's so easy to use. And once you understand it, it's like bringing a gun to a knife fight, right? Like you could just plow through things really easy and quickly. But what I see happening, and it's funny, somebody brought this up in a post. I saw this. My son did a science project on AI, right? But there's the risk that because people see it so easy, they don't take the time to think about basic things and they just delegate it to the AI. And what's going to happen is like they are not going to learn fundamental skills to grow and develop because they don't understand the core concepts, right? So that's one of the things I think we got to be careful of, especially with younger kids or younger people in their career, of just like going the whole AI route and not truly taking the time to really understand what needs to be understood to be an expert in a field.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense because you don't want it to become a crutch such that you have to have that and you don't have a way, like you said, to grow and learn and become an expert. I think that's amazing advice. And speaking of grow, I want to talk about your career because you came in, sales job, you're entry level, and then you just crush it and you rose up the ranks. You got better, you rose, you got better, you rose, you kept getting promoted. I love that story. And obviously it was probably a lot of work for you, but also a lot of fun looking back. What advice can you give to others who are looking to be, to learn, to grow, to improve and be promoted through an organization? What can you share with them?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question because I had a guest on my podcast, David Farrell, who's like an RVP at Namely, and I'm friends with them, and we talked about this exact subject. And at the same time, I presented for Sales Assembly for a group of folks for their certification on how to do this. So it's something that I haven't thought about in a long time, but for some reason it's come up. Like this is the third time it's come up in the last 30 days. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to talk about. So here's what I would say is like the thing to get promoted is number one is like find a way to create results. Like that's the simplest way in revenue orgs. Now, what I would say though, outside of that is there's a really unique opportunity. I'll give an example of a use case. So I broke this down for, I think it was like 30 people in the training I did it for. And basically, most companies have like a pipeline review meeting, right? So if they're a sales role, they have a pipeline review meeting, and that's usually like an hour with your manager where you go through your pipeline, what's coming down, what's next, what's happening, how you're going to make those deals happen. You talk about strategy. Usually you talk about personal development. So here's kind of the framework that I gave is one, like own your numbers and be proactive with the opportunities for improvement you need to take to get the results you want, whether if you're hitting your results of getting to the next level or 2 levels beyond that. That's step one. So that alone will separate you versus 99% of people, because most of the time, from what I've seen, they don't show up prepared. Sales reps don't show up always prepared, and they don't truly own their numbers and know what they need to do. That's step one. Step two then is asking that revenue leader that you work for of like, where are your blind spots? Like this is what I'm doing. Just call me out, like help me understand in terms of developing where are my blind spots. So I would say that's number two. And then number three, and this is very basic, but most people miss it, is truly understand the pressures and how your boss is evaluated so you could support that. And then also connect with them as a real human on what's important outside their life. So then they become, you become one of their favorites, right? And here's what I would say is like, this isn't about being a teacher's pet or anything like that. However, I can't tell you how many times, Matt, and you've probably seen this as well, where, basically a CRO or a VP or someone that you report to, gets promoted, and then they get promoted out of the company, and then they bring people in that used to work for them for really sweet opportunities that, I just saw it with somebody at OpenAI, right? Like I was talking to go-to-market lead there, and he basically said, hey, I worked for this woman before. She was awesome. She loved me, and she brought me into OpenAI, and he left Gartner and wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that because that's not just a job you just show up and get, right? So like stuff like that happens as a byproduct. So those are the 3 steps that I would take for getting promoted.
I love it. Amazing. And as I look back on my career, as I look at other friends who have gone through similar processes or I guess achievements like you have, I've seen a similar story. So I think that's amazing advice. And as we wrap up here, Ryan, what other advice can you share if you're a software leader, you're saying, okay, I want to grow, I want to scale, I want to be able to use AI. What advice can you give to those leaders?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things, and I wrote a post about this, it did really well. I was speaking at a SaaS event for SaaS executives. It was LACA's event last year. And I asked the question, I said, there's probably about, 45 or 47 people in the room. And I asked the question of how many people here know what the ACV or the annual contract value average is of the top 20% of their clients, right? And literally only 2 out of the 47 people knew the answer to that question.
Wow.
And the opportunity there is, right, is if you truly understand that, what you will be able to do is you can basically have like a separate ICP and then a PCP. I call it the perfect customer profile, right? And basically just like you would investments, you allocate a certain amount of attention, resources, and focus on that top 20%. so that you can multiply those clients, because typically the top 20% equals 80% of your revenue. You will do that. We do that at 2x our deal size every single year for 5 years straight. Also,
love it.
Like basically 100x our largest deal size, right? Without any people, without any resources, anything, just literally that like level and determination of focus. So that's one. And then when it comes to AI, what I would say is like, the simplest way is this is the most transformative technology that we've ever had. And reason being is because it's on an exponential curve that's changing so fast that there's going to be massive opportunity as a byproduct of that. And so what I would say is if you haven't started using it, start day one. Literally, instead of using Google for a question, go to ChatGPT, start using that, even if it's only 15 minutes a day. And here's the other part that nobody does, but it's like the most amazing thing that happened to me is write down what use case you used it for and what idea you have for another use case. Just do it on an Excel spreadsheet, Google Sheet, or whatever. Like I have ideas that were created off of that created mind-shattering results just by like trying and documenting. And so if you do those two things before you know it, you will be amazing. Obviously, I have lots of information and content on it too, but that's one way where you could, be your own self-operating system and do it. So those are two recommendations I would have.
I love it. Great recommendations. Very actionable as well. This has been fantastic, Ryan. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your wisdom with us. How can people learn more about you and WhaleBoss?
Yeah, man. Thanks, man. It's been a blast having me on. So I would say there's two things. One is literally if you want to get in touch with me on my website, I even have my email on the website, or you can connect me. It's ryanstaley.io. At the same time, too, I should say on LinkedIn, I post tons of content. DM me on there with a connection request if you have it. Say you heard me on Matt's show, and just engage with me there. That's super easy because I post tons of content daily, just like Matt does. So
perfect. And we'll link to all that in the show notes. So if you're listening, if you're watching, go ahead and grab those there. But Ryan, thanks so much for coming on the show. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, it was a blast. Thanks, Matt, having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Make sure that if you like this, if you thought Ryan was really helpful, submit us a review. I want to see those reviews because it's helping us understand how we can craft more great content for you. And then also other people will see that this is something that can help them. So I really appreciate when you do that. And thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Scale Your SaaS. For more help on finding great leads and closing more deals, go to mattwolach.com.